Okay, hello. Welcome. This is Thursday's edition of Literacy. We are we're going to review some vocab and talk about the passage for a second. By now, you should have read this morning before you started watching this video. And if you didn't, you can pause it and go ahead and get that hot read done for the week. Remember, if you notice that you have a lot of mistakes when you read, sometimes this is a good indication that maybe you're reading too fast. Slow down a little bit. We ask you to record how many words per minute you read. Um, it's good for you to see how fast you read. Benchmark, meaning where you should be reading if you are a freshman or a sophomore, 9th or 10th grade. You should be reading about 150 words per minute. If you are in 11th and 12th grade, you should be reading about 165 words a minute. And if you're not, that's okay. That's why we do literacy, is to improve that and to improve your ability to pronounce words and be exposed to new vocabulary so that you become a better reader. Okay, again, you should have set a timer for 1 minute and read the passage again before proceeding with this little lecture that I'm about to give, okay? If not, now's a perfect time to pause and get that done. Okay, assuming that you have read it again, hopefully you're viewing this also before you take the zip quiz. The whole purpose of Thursday is not only to get a hot read score, but it's also to review with you and go over any parts of the passage that maybe you didn't understand or weren't clear on, or any other words that you had a hard time pronouncing. Oftentimes you'll see that in these passages, there are many words that we don't oftentimes use. We hear them a lot, but we don't use them just simply because we don't always know the meaning. We're familiar with it, but we've never really been forced to contemplate what those words mean. Take, for instance, the word panhandle. We talked about how a panhandle, in this instance, it's a strip of land that, may kind of go into another state. In this instance, it sounds as though that lake here on Pend Oreille, that lake is kind of down in that strip of land there in Idaho. So it's pretty secluded. We understand from that it's 375 miles from the ocean, which is, phenomenal considering that these are submarines that are being used. They ultimately end up in the ocean, of course, but instead they're being tested out in Lake Pend Oreille. Also notice, we discussed this at the beginning of the week, that in the passage, Lake Pend Oreille looks like Lake Pend Oreille. Remember, do not mark yourself off for mispronouncing Lake Pend Oreille. I just want you to be familiar with how to say it so that it doesn't mess you up as you're reading. Sometimes, your brain will get stuck because it knows it's not saying the word right, and then it can slow you down. So, say Lake Pend Oreille and move on. If you don't say it right, that's just fine. It's not a vocab word. So in discussing not only panhandle, but venturing, when someone goes on an adventure, right, they are looking around. They're going and exploring. Venturing is really not that much different. It's just that venturing has a more dangerous connotation to it, or a more dangerous feeling to it. So you're venturing means you're kind of same, going on an adventure, but adventure is a more positive connotation, whereas venturing is a more negative, more dangerous way to go exploring. And that is why they test these submarines down in this Idaho lake, is simply because they don't have to deal with sea life. They don't have to deal with other ships, maybe other submarines in the area. This way they can just strictly focus on the research that they are performing on the particular sub that they may be maneuvering in that area. Notice also that it talks about in the passage that this lake is in a relatively cold area that mimics or is very similar to ocean life, meaning the winds and the cold. And so it sounds as though Idaho and Bayview, Idaho is, it's a cold climate. It is very similar to maybe similar waters that they would find if they had a submarine more like in the Arctic, right? Or, you know, they're definitely, as we know, colder parts of the ocean. And so this provides a perfect place for them to study and research the acoustics, which happens to be another vocab word that we have this week. Acoustic meaning sound, right? Acoustic meaning sound. We've heard of that when we talk about music and guitars, but how sound bounces off the submarine is important, because if you think about it, right, submarines are used to spy on other countries. We know that Russia has submarines. I mean, really, many countries have submarines. And so, of course, acoustically speaking, it's going to be very important for us to have that information about the sounds that not only the submarines give off, because we know that sound travels much faster through water actually than light. Sound is, it's, I think, might even be 5 times faster. You have to ask your science teacher on that. But sound travels faster through water, and because of that, they're going to really study that and research it and make sure that they're not giving off where they are inside of that submarine as they float around the ocean. And as you notice, they talked about it being tethered to the bottom of the lake, right? So sometimes they'll just sink that sub down there, tether it to the bottom of the lake, and do their research there. And you know, people that live in this little town don't even realize that there are submarines down there doing the research. And which I think is a win for the Navy, right? Because if they can do that in a small town, it probably means they can carry that out in the ocean. Okay, so last, buoyancy. The most important part you can remember about buoyancy is it means to float, right? It's the ability to float in a liquid. But I want you to focus on the spelling of buoyancy. What I want you to really hear is buoyancy, right? Buoyancy. It looks like this. Don't forget that U. That U is right there at the very beginning. So we say boy, B-oy, but I want you to remember the U comes first. That may or may not be on your quiz today. Okay, so buoyancy. Remember that U. Don't forget today to record your hot read score. If you have words, I call them stumble words. If you have some words that you know are difficult for you, like pond array, remember, don't spend a lot of time on that because you're not going to get marked off for that. You know, say it the way you need, but it is pond array, not Lake Pend Oriel. Okay. A few other words maybe on here that could potentially be could trip you up a little bit. The Navy Acoustic Research Detachment, ARD. You can say ARD or ARD. That doesn't matter either. Let's see. Pend Oreille, obscurely. You can see the word obscurely in here. Obscure means not very noticeable. So obscure, it's in the bottom part of the passage. Obscurely, okay? So obscurely located, that's in the second to last paragraph of the passage, okay? And then landlocked, if you've never heard of the word landlocked, that means that it's an area that is surrounded by land, right? There's nothing, there isn't any kind of waterway that opens to it. It's just surrounded by land. Okay, that sums up really what we've been talking about all week. I hope you enjoyed the passage. I think it was kind of interesting. Good luck on your zip quiz, and thank you. Have a good day.